You're watching BionicDance. Don't run on automatic, instead, please think.
For those of you who are watching this video who have no idea of the context, a YouTuber by the name of BionicDance recently responded to one of my previous videos. That video was titled, "The Question Atheists Cannot Answer."
Dude Boy said to give him a week, but here he is. It's 2 days later. Talk about efficient. Well, time to make the donuts. Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers. BionicDance here. So we've got a video response to my video response to his video. It's like a bad soap opera or a really boring episode of Jerry Springer. Is he still on? I haven't watched TV in ages. Basically, he asked why anything is wrong in an atheist worldview. I explained why the question is a bad one, and it is. It makes a lot of assumptions and contains a fair number of misunderstandings. And now here we are, 2 days later, and the not getting it continues.
So what is a worldview exactly? A worldview is defined as a particular philosophy of life or conception of the world. You can have several worldviews.
Okay, don't do that. Don't quote dictionaries. Dictionaries give one-sentence descriptions of quite complicated subjects, and that's not good enough for an argument like this one. Instead, use an encyclopedia, even if it's Wikipedia. So what's Wikipedia say about a worldview? Quote, "A worldview is the fundamental cognitive orientation of an individual or society encompassing the whole of the individual's or society's knowledge and point of view." It goes on to say, quote, "Worldview remains a confused and confusing concept in English, used very differently by linguists and sociologists. It is for this reason that James W. Underhill suggests 5 subcategories: world perceiving, world conceiving, cultural mindset, personal world, and perspective," which, yes, contains what you've described as a worldview, but there is obviously more to it than just that. And this seems, as I said earlier in my first response, to be a case of not being able to really understand what it's like to not have religion being such a significant part of one's life.
But atheism is obviously one of yours. You've dedicated 10 years of your life to a YouTube channel talking about atheism and how that atheism affects your life. Whether you believe it or not, atheism is a worldview that you hang on to.
It's actually not. Earlier in your response, you quoted one of my videos where I was talking about how it can be discouraging to not see one's subscriber count go up and agreeing that it's a bit of a bummer. Not super relevant to my response, obviously. But here's the thing. I made that video on September 5th. It's November 30th. That video was made nearly 3 months ago, and there are 21 vids between then and now, 22 if you count this one. And if you watched enough of my back catalog to see that video, then you must have seen me explain at least once why I make these. People often use religion as an excuse to justify how they treat other people rather poorly. And I'm not exactly a fan of that crapola. And given some of my personal lifestyle, I could easily be in the crosshairs of some of those religious haters, bigots. I make these videos in self-defense. I try to debunk religion to take away that excuse for being total pricks. I've said it many times. I don't care what you believe as long as you can share and play nicely with the other kids. Do that, and I'll shut up. This isn't so much philosophy for me. That's just a means to an end. This is activism.
It might not be the most important, it might not be the prominent worldview, but it is a worldview that you have, and it's shaping the way in which you see the world.
Again, not really. Like I said in my first response, atheism is not an is, it's an is not. If religion never existed, my life really wouldn't change at all. My channel would be dedicated to my animation work instead of atheism, or gaming. I have a video game channel that I just started using again after, like, a year. Go subscribe. Link in the description. Hint, hint. Like I said, atheism isn't an is, it's an is not. If you jokers stopped horning in on my life, if you stopped telling me about your magical sky fairies, I'd never think about them. Ever. The only thing that shapes my worldview with regard to religion is how it won't go away and leave me alone.
When asked what was before the point of singularity, you say,
"We don't know."
I find that interesting because you're very comfortable in a scientific setting saying, "We don't know." But when it comes to God, you say that you don't believe that God exists based on the evidence, when you're probably better off saying, "I don't know."
But I do say that I don't know. I describe myself as an agnostic apistivist atheist. Let me unpack that for you. Gnosis, knowledge. I lack knowledge of God's existence. Apistivus, pistis, faith. I won't use faith to reach a conclusion. Therefore, atheist, theist, a believer in God. I ain't one of those. See, there is a lot more nuance than most theists, indeed most of anybody who hasn't done their homework, seems to think. If you go talk to atheists, I mean really talk to atheists, you'll hear about how some people are strong atheists, weak atheists, Gnostic or agnostic atheists, implicit or explicit atheists. Like I keep telling you, atheism is not an is, it's an is not. People are gonna get sick of me saying it, but frankly, I can't say it enough. All it takes to be an atheist is to not be a theist, to have the number of gods you believe in be 0 for any reason that non-belief exists.
Because in order to believe that God doesn't exist, or know that God doesn't exist, you have to know everything about the universe, and there's no possible way that anyone on the face of the planet could know that.
This is a misconception so many theists have about atheists. Some do this, sure, but not all of us say that God doesn't exist. We're just not convinced enough to believe it's so. You're gonna have to start getting that right, because it's getting old having to tell you guys that. And here's another point. You claim to know that God exists, or at least to believe that God exists, which means that you, in your life, have had some experience to reach that conclusion. So I don't have to know everything about the universe. I just have to know everything you know, at least with regard to God's existence.
However, since you guys don't think I'm equipped to talk about science, I'm going to move on from that topic because that wasn't the point of the video anyway. The point of the video was to ask you, why is anything really wrong? Now I have a question about your answer, and that question is, does emotional hurt count?
Of course it does. Obviously, harm can come in different flavors. But here's the thing. Hurt also comes in different amounts. Let's face it. This is the internet. People are anonymous here. It's cyberspace. They think they can get away with things that would get them punched in meat space. If you're gonna be on the internet, you kinda gotta grow some thick skin. If you read some of the quite hurtful comments people have left on my videos, insults about my looks usually, or my voice, if I were a special little snowflake who melted under that kind of heat, I'd have stopped making videos a long time ago. Sure it hurts, and I used to hide behind my animated avatar, Sandra, for a very long time because of it, but I put on my big girl pants and fucking dealt with it, as you can see. And someone calling you names on the internet isn't quite the same as, say, emotional, spousal, or parental abuse. It shouldn't damage your psyche or make you find a shrink to deal with it. Then you started going all Ray Comfort on us, saying that one little white lie or some other tiny sin dooms us forever. Frankly, that's horse crap, and not just the hell part. Hurting someone might be wrong, but come on, bounds of reason here. It's not black or white, and eternal punishment for a finite crime is not reasonable.
Some further questions for you, BionicDance. Are these commenters wrong? You see, people are capable of doing terrible things to each other while still believing that they are moral. Like these commenters who are professing do unto others as their moral standard, but then are incredibly mean to another human being with whom they disagree. Also, where did you get that do unto others thing that you're so fond of?
Depends what you mean, the concept or the exact quote. Because the concept comes from a combination of empathy and self-interest. I don't care where the quote is from.
Religion is flawed because man is flawed, not because God is flawed.
So why should I think that it isn't flawed men writing stories during an age when they didn't even know where lightning comes from in order to explain their lives in the only way they knew how? With a God. We've progressed a lot since then, and every time science finds something about the world that contradicts spiritual teachings in a way that can be empirically and objectively demonstrated, the God botherers will move the goalposts, saying their holy book's claims are just allegory or something. But at some point you've got to ask yourself which is really more likely, that a God actually exists, or that the people who wrote the Bible were frickin' clueless. Because frankly, I'd take those odds to Vegas.
Now let's take a look at the concept of free will. In regards to free will, you said,
and we may not have free will, but I can get you a coupon for 20% off.
First and foremost, I'd like to get that 20% off.
Alright, here you go. 1 coupon for 20% off will. Valid in participating realities only. 1 coupon per entity. Not valid with other philosophies. Expires at the heat death of the universe.
But in all seriousness, if we don't truly have free will, you can't be mad at me for my opinions, for posting videos, for my religious beliefs, because all that is a projection of the chemicals that are firing in my brain that are caused by my evolutionary state.
I can be mad at you. In fact, I'd have no choice. I don't have free will, remember? My reaction to you acting like a jerkwad is built into me just as much as it's built into you. That's how not having free will works. It's funny to me how many people making the free will argument don't get that. Neither of us is in control. I don't choose to be grouchy with you at all. It just happens.
Now, there's the argument of nature versus nurture, right? And people will say, well, you wouldn't be a Christian if you weren't raised in America. Now, I disagree because my brother and I were raised in the exact same environment, but he is an outspoken atheist, and I am an outspoken theist.
Again, this is black or white absolutist thinking, like I described in the last video. And by the way, I'm a little grumpy that you didn't address that part, the part about how theists seem to need their morality to be something less nuanced and more messy than what we see in the real world. Your brother broke free from religion, and that's great. But statistically, you'll find that religious people tend to come from religious upbringings. It's far less common to see someone become religious when they never were. Again, it ain't absolute. It's just a pretty obvious trend.
And there is evidence for God. I've been asking a lot of them what evidence they will accept, so that way I can understand how to even pitch a 10-minute argument for God and what particular evidence I want to focus on.
Long story short, if you can't test it in a lab, it ain't good enough. Double-blind lab tests or go home. Make it so that faith is not a factor. If you can't do that, you're gonna prove nothing.
In conclusion, if you're still here, I want you to know, BionicDance, how much I truly appreciate you as well as all the commenters on these videos, because you took time out of your day to watch what I had to say and to respond to it.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't feel so special. I only respond to people if I think they're being a chowderhead. Well, and if their video isn't all rambly, unfocused, or a million years long. That helps.
But what I appreciate the most about you, BionicDance, is you left in the Bible verse. You also left in the very simple pitch for the gospel in your video, and although it may have fell on deaf ears, I've reached over 1,000 people through your video, not my own, and that's tremendous.
One of my most important priorities in my videos is integrity. I always link to the video to which I'm responding, as well as to the person's channel, for example. And when I cut out footage, I only do it for length. I do my best to leave the point intact. That's important for having an honest and reasonable discussion or debate. And what you said didn't fall on deaf ears. I heard it, I just didn't buy it.
If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I do truly care about you, whether or not you believe me. I do. I care about everyone. And hopefully, I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Well, we'll see how far this goes, I guess. I haven't had a back and forth with anyone on YouTube in a long time. I'm not sure how many people to whom I've responded even watch my videos. Obviously, I'm gonna have to respond to other people as well, or my audience might get bored. And to be honest, having a civil discussion instead of a screaming match doesn't keep bums on seats, much to my regret. So, we'll have to see. Until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance, saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think.
Attention citizens. Failure to contribute will result in suspended oxygen privileges. Attention citizens. Failure to contribute will result in suspended oxygen privileges. Attention citizens.
And remember, if it can't be in your hand, it's all in your head.